Welcome to Shalaborate. I'm Kath.
And I'm Kyra. This is our podcast for the girls, from the girls.
We're telling our stories, hyping up women who inspire us, and shalaborating every step of the way.
It's time to give you the girl talk you've been waiting for. Let's get into it.
We are beyond excited to introduce today's guest, Brenn Richards. She's not just a professional skydiver, she's one of the 2024 female four-way formation skydiving world champions and part of the team that took home the overall national title in freefall. But titles aside, Brenn is the kind of person who brings intensity, heart, and grit into everything that she does. She's an elite athlete, a teammate and friend you'd kill to have, and just an all-around badass. We can't wait for you to hear her story. But before we do that, we wanted to take a second to thank everyone who's been with us, listening to and supporting the podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, or you've been with us since the beginning, we're glad you're here. We're working hard to put out quality, relatable content through all the mic and audio issues and sometimes less than perfect sound quality. Thanks for sticking with us. It's only going up from here. Now, let's get into it.
All right, welcome back, collaborators. This is probably the episode that I've been most excited for because when we started and decided that we wanted to do a podcast, we were like deciding what we wanted to be about, like who we wanted to interview. And this guest was the first person and I was like, we must interview her. We have to have her on the show. I can't have this podcast without having this guest here. So Brenn, thank you for coming to our studio. This is actually the first time that we have a guest in our studio. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself for our guests?
Well, first of all, thank you, ladies, for having me. I'm very excited and honored to be on the show. A little bit about myself. I'm a professional skydiver. It's very a unique job description, I would say. You tell the average person, they're like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
It can mean a lot of different things. So for me in particular, I work in the school, which is where people learn how to skydive and shoot tandem video. So anytime you go on a skydive for the first time, you get the option of getting media. So that's one of my favorite jobs in the drop zone, just the high of someone going on their first skydive. It's irreplaceable.
I just want to say that you were the videographer when my sister went tandem skydiving.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yeah,
I do remember that.
I was like, Brenn will.
We just put it about it.
Yeah, we will also put that. Yes, we will do that.
For those of you watching on YouTube, stick around at the end. We've included Brenn's video edit of my sister's first tandem jump.
And then I'm a competitor and a coach in 4-way and 8-way skydiving.
So for all of our non-skydiver folks, let's break this down a little bit. Tandem skydiving is how most people experience skydiving for the first time, and it's as epic as it sounds. Here's how it works. You're harnessed directly to a certified instructor, someone with thousands of jumps under their belt. They handle all the technical stuff so you can just enjoy the ride. AFF, or Accelerated Freefall, is the most direct path to becoming a licensed skydiver. It's not a tandem jump where you're attached to a tandem instructor. This time, you're in control. From your very first jump, you exit the plane solo with a certified instructor, or an AFFI. Instructors like Brenn are right there with you in freefall, holding on to guide you, coach you, and keep you safe.
AFF is broken into levels, usually 7, and each jump builds on the last. You learn how to turn, track, recover from instability, and eventually fly solo. This is your first official step towards getting your skydiving license, or A license. It means you've proven you can jump safely without supervision, pack your own parachute, and fly and land with confidence. With an A license, you're no longer a student. You're a certified skydiver, free to jump at most drop zones, connect with other jumpers, and truly start exploring the sport. But that's just the beginning. From there, you can level up, working toward your B, C, and D licenses. Each one opens new doors: night jumps, camera flying, coaching, and big way events.
Yeah, we definitely want to get into like everything that you've done and worked so hard to be a world champion skydiver, but also get to know kind of the girl behind and underneath the helmet.
We asked Brenn to tell us a little bit about her family and growing up, and the question on everybody's mind, how she got into skydiving.
I grew up in upstate New York in a college town called New Paltz, New York. I am one of 4 kids. I'm the oldest. I have 3 younger siblings, 3 brothers. And one of them skydives regularly. The other 2 have skydived, but they don't regularly skydive. One of them has his pilot's license. He hasn't flown that much. He's finishing his master's in engineering. And I think he's got like a year left of that. And he's in a cool internship right now. Both of my parents met skydiving at the ranch in New York. So
cool.
That's how that all originated and how I became a skydiving baby.
So the ranch was where it all originated.
Yes. Yep. I grew up there. It is a family business that I've been a part of, and my uncle and my dad run the drop zone. My dad used to be a commercial airline pilot, and when my mom and dad started having kids, they decided that instead of just doing the drop zone part-time and being an airline pilot where he's gone all the time, that they made the choice to stop flying commercial so he could be home more.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle bought some land and had some capital to buy some planes, and together my dad's like the front end of the business. He's the manager, and he's an airplane mechanic and pilot and has all of his ratings. He doesn't use them anymore. He's up there in the age bracket. He doesn't need to do all of it now.
He doesn't need to be fixing airplanes anymore.
He loves fixing airplanes.
Okay.
No.
He's like, I only want to
Exactly. No one bothers him. He's just in the zone fixing airplanes like the typical airplane mechanic where they just want to be left to their own devices. Yeah, so that's what he does. My brother works at the drop zone right now and helps run operations with him as my dad's getting a little bit older and trying to retire. I was recently there. It was a little cold still. Like this time of year is a little cold to jump there. But
yeah, because I'm sure they're not open all year round.
No, we are not open year round. Usually end of March, April, jumping's a little more consistent, but this season's been pretty bad. Yeah, it's been very rainy and bad weather on the weekends.
Skydiving is extremely weather dependent. We're talking wind, clouds, visibility, and even what's happening miles above the ground. Too windy, dangerous exits, and unpredictable canopy landings. Low clouds, you can't jump if you can't see the ground. Rain or thunderstorms, total shutdown. And then there's temperature. Some drop zones, especially in colder regions, don't even operate year-round. Winter brings snow, ice, and brutal temperatures that can freeze gear and fingers. So they close for the season and wait for the spring to bring back blue skies. Even on what looks like a nice day, upper winds or cloud layers at altitude can hold everything up. That's why you'll hear, "We're on a weather hold." It's not just being cautious, it's safety plain and simple.
So places like DeLand Skydiving in Florida is able to stay open year-round, and places like the ranch are closed for the winter months.
It's mainly a tandem factory. There's a very good group of fun jumpers, and that's how I kind of fell in love with it, was the fun jumper community after getting my license, and just really great instructors. One really great instructor who did all of my jumps when I was a wee skydiver.
Yeah, how old were you when you started skydiving?
I did my first tandem when I was 11. My dad took me on my first tandem, yeah. Very underage. So if you sign a waiver and there's an agreement and you're the owners of the facility, there's a couple of other people like Doug Barron. He got his license pretty young as well, like underage. And there used to be a rule in USPA that you had to be 16 to get your license as long as you had parent consent. And then they changed that rule like a month after I got my license. So I was grandfathered in. I did my first tandem when I was 11. I was very small. So my mom was not happy with how everything fit. 70 pounds, 75 pounds. So I didn't get to make my next tandem until I was 12. I was a little bit bigger, so my mom was a little less freaked out about it. She was also a skydiver, so she knows how the process works, but she hadn't jumped in years. Once they started having kids, she stopped jumping.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. Do you remember your first jump?
Oh, yeah.
Can you describe it?
To be honest, the plane ride up was very memorable in the sense of like, I've lived a good life. I remember being an 11-year-old and being like, I'm with my dad. I'm going to jump out of this plane. People do it all the time. There's a higher risk that I'm going to die, but I want to do this so badly. I was just thinking about all the scenarios, and, you know, a lot of people thought I was crazy that my parents were letting me jump at such a young age. And I remember thinking that vividly, like in the plane, and just like smiling. And then in free fall, I remember.
Wait, describe to me. So you guys are hooked up prior to getting in the plane.
And we get harnessed prior to getting the plane, and then you get hooked up when you're in the plane.
Okay.
And then everything gets
Together.
kind of, together. So I got my dad behind me, and I'm in front of him, and he hooks
Okay.
up.
And you stand up in the plane, and you're walking to the door,
Yep.
and you're at this point no control because
Yep.
you're hooked to your dad.
Pretty much. Anyone who makes a tandem jump, you're a little bit at the mercy, depending on how big you are in relation to your tandem
Makes
instructor.
sense.
My dad's pretty tall, 200 plus pounds. There was
Yeah.
no issue like getting me to go to the door, nor did I not want to go, because that does happen quite often when people are so scared, where they like try and brace themselves in the door or hold on to things, which is everything we tell you not to do.
Right.
Right.
And then jumping out. I remember at first having a hard time breathing, which is pretty normal. People are like, I had a hard time breathing. It's just because you're taking in oxygen so much and you're not exhaling. And then I landed and I had so much snot on my face. I was like, is this normal for snot? And people are like, yeah, it's pretty normal. I remember being under canopy, and my dad, he's like a very laid back guy. He's like, all right, Brenn, so now we're under canopy. I'm just gonna disconnect the laterals. Like, that's literally how my dad sounds if you ever meet him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you landed, you're safe.
Yeah.
And what after that, were you hooked or did you love it?
Oh,
or
yes.
What was the feeling after?
Immediately was like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life.
You knew.
I knew immediately.
Oh my god.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yep.
And were you in school at the time? Did you go back to school? What was it like going back to school after you were like, I just jumped out of a plane?
Well, funny enough, I was homeschooled until about the 7th
I
grade.
didn't know that.
There was no one really at school to tell about, but I did play a lot of sports.
Yeah.
So between sports and like the homeschooling community that we were sort of a part of, they already knew that's what my parents did, so it wasn't really a big deal to them. And I was kind of like trying to keep it on the down low.
Do you ever feel in general that you find it hard to connect with people that don't skydive? And can you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely hard to connect with people who don't skydive because their immediate reaction is, do you do one of those squirrel suit things?
That's what they think all skydivers do?
Yes, they see like base jumpers,
Right.
and they see Red Bull athletes doing demos into cool places, which is skydiving. And then the other common question is like, so can you do flips? I'm like, yeah, I can do flips. And in my head, I was like, that's what we teach students how to do. Like, and they're like, oh, it's so cool. You did a backflip out of the plane. And I'm like, yeah, really cool. Because, it doesn't really require any skill to do a backflip out of the plane.
I'm thinking like my first time airborne, literally getting whipped around tornado. I probably did a backflip. And I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually had some other skydiver friends trying to go on a date with someone who doesn't skydive and just tell them a different story. Like, be like, yeah, no, I'm a school teacher, I'm a lawyer.
Whoa.
Because it's so, the number of questions and the explaining that goes into it, it's like, you're not asking about me at all in this situation. You're just asking about the sport. So for a while, I wouldn't tell people.
You wouldn't?
Nope.
What would you, did you have a
Did you have a
specific
go-to?
lie?
Yeah, what was your go-to fake job?
I mean-
love this.
I wouldn't have like a specific go-to. I just tell them what I did outside of skydiving. So like when I was in college specifically, when I'd like go out to the bar or something and they try and make small talk, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a college student. I'm a waitress. Put myself through school partially while finishing my degree, which changed 5,000 different times. And I would pretty much leave it out of the equation.
Because you're like, I don't want to have to answer those.
Yeah.
Can you do a backflip?
Or like, can you take me? Would be the next.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just like,
Yeah,
no.
right?
I'm like, no. Yeah.
So you went from the ranch up in New York.
Yep.
That's where your family, are they still currently up there?
Yep.
And how did you end up in North Carolina?
So there's a girls team at XP called XPG4, and they were the U.S. women's team representing the U.S. For the female category.
XP Paraclete is located in Rayford, North Carolina, just outside of Fort Bragg. It's one of the premier skydiving facilities on the East Coast, known for its professional infrastructure to include a wind tunnel, swoop pond, and consistent year-round operations.
Paraclete is widely used by both civilian and military jumpers. Multiple U.S. military units, including special operations, conduct regular training here, alongside national skydiving teams and competitive formation skydiving groups, including those that compete at national and world championship levels. Teams from across the United States and abroad come to train in formation skydiving, canopy piloting, and vertical disciplines.
And I'd actually been out of the competition space for about 4 years. So I did 3 years of competing. very early on. I think I was just barely 18 when I joined my first four-way team, which was one of my friends going, "Do you want to do four-way?" And I was like, "What's four-way?" And he's like, "It's four people jumping out of the sky together. We're gonna skydive." And we train. And I was like, "Cool, skydiving." Four people that or three other people that I like. We didn't have three other people at the time because we had to find them. And two of them are actually on the the open team. They're on Arizona Airspeed now. So my two former teammates, and then Michelle Caramon, who asked me to come try out for this girls team in North Carolina. She was on our team the following year. So we had a different teammate for our first year. We went to nationals. We got like 16th in the intermediate category, trained a few weekends here and there, and then we wanted to take it more seriously, and we brought Michelle on and we hired a coach, and we actually came to XP to train a bunch. And then after we won the advanced category, I was still finishing school and I couldn't do both. I could not afford to do both, and I was stressed out with my degree and training, and I said, "Guys, we did it. We accomplished the goal. I'm out." And being in college and school, trying to support yourself skydiving,
Right.
it costs a lot to get good.
Yeah.
So much had already been put forth in the money bucket. I wanted to focus more on school, so I did that. And then I kept skydiving. Like, I got my ratings, my instructor ratings, and I just didn't put my focus into a specific team at the high level. So I got this call from my former teammate Michelle, who had already won world medals in 8-way twice, or no, they hadn't won the world meet outdoor. They'd won indoor. And I was like, man, I'm in over my head here. But they had me try out, and another girl also tried out, and they took me. So that's how I ended up in North Carolina.
Okay, let's break down competitions a little. Formation skydiving, also known as FS or belly flying, is a competitive discipline where the teams of skydivers build a series of shapes or formations while in free fall. The most common event is the four-way formation skydiving. Formation skydiving competitions are held at the national, continental, and world level. The FAI World Championships are the pinnacle, where elite civilian and military teams from around the globe compete for gold, often with over a decade of team experience behind each lineup.
In four-way formation skydiving, each team member flies a specific slot based on their position as they exit the aircraft. Point, outside center, inside center, and tail. The two center flyers, inside and outside center, serve as the engine of the team, setting the fall rate, speed, and orientation of each formation. The outer flyers, point and tail, match the center's pace and movements, locking into position once the base is built. Each slot demands different strengths. Inside center requires precision and control. Outside center handles many technical transitions and must adapt quickly. Point needs confidence and spatial awareness with limited visibility, and tail often has fast, aggressive movements requiring decisiveness. Success in four-way depends on trust, timing, and each flyer knowing not just where to go, but exactly when and how to get there.
What does a tryout look like?
So typically, for us, we went to Arizona because it was the winter time. So they needed a new teammate. They had let go one of their former teammates unexpectedly. So they had to fly. I had to fly out to Arizona to train. And what we do is a session of tunnel. So it's like 15 minutes in the tunnel. They originally were going to try me in different slots, but since I was so out of the four-way world for so long, I could barely remember my slot. It's 4 different slots in four-way. And then you jump. We did a jump camp. We did 2 days of jumping. So then after that, they have a team call separately and make a decision, pros and cons. And ultimately, I was the younger one, the hungrier one, and very malleable, essentially. That's they call me, like, young and energetic and malleable. So that's why they picked me, from what I've been told, anyways.
Yeah, I remember at one camp that you did, you had mentioned, like, make sure that you like the people that are on your team because you're spending a lot of time with that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm assuming they probably took that into account and you kind of just gelled and vibed with those people. So that was part of.
Yes. From what I could tell, since the passing of the other teammate was somewhat recent, and a professional team is not like a weekend four-way team where you do maybe 10 jumps a day. Everyone has 2 rigs, which is still kind of ambitious for a newer team. So say you do like 6 jumps in a day and you train once a month, you maybe get 100 team jumps if you're lucky a year. We're training 10 days a month at minimum, plus we're in the tunnel. My first year on the team, I flew, this is not just with the 4-way girls, but with other training and other teams, trying to catch up, essentially. Flew 100 hours in the tunnel my first year back.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
and for context for people, because I'm having a hard time even like understanding. 100 hours in the tunnle.
Yep.
Breaks up into like
100 skydives. How many minutes?
I mean, that's
a lot of minutes.
That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, that's just a lot of hours.
Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of time to be doing something. And it's like physically exhausting too.
Yep. Yeah. Tunnel shape is a real thing. You can be a very fit person, but flying in the tunnel with other people, and especially if it's not just 4-way where you're with your teammates who are a little, like the girls team is pretty small in general and we're lighter. When I was flying 8-way and doing other camp situations, coaching, and just getting more flight time, you're getting roughed around, and you got to fly strong in there. And it's their unique muscle groups. You don't really know until you do it. So everyone, you should go fly in the tunnel.
Yeah,
get that experience.
Come fly with Brenn. She'll show you the ropes.
You gotta do my best. Do my best.
For someone who doesn't know like skydiving competitions, what are they judging on? Specifically for, you can talk about 4-way or just competitions in general, but what are you judged on? How do they judge it? How does the competition work?
So the best way I can describe skydiving competitions is like track and field. So there's a bunch of different divisions, right? You got your pole vault, you've got your sprinters, you got your long distance. So there are canopy pilots who compete in what we call swooping, and there's different categories that they have to score points on. Swoopers, they fly their parachutes across a body of water, and if you're in the pro class, you have to drag water before these entry gates. And then if you end up in this tiny little box at the end of the pond, in a certain box, you score more points. If you sit down, you get less points. That's just like one discipline. And there's accuracy, which is the zone ac, speed, and distance. And then the entry gates, if you're in a lower class, you don't have to have the same height entry gates. They're higher up. So you don't have to necessarily touch water to compete in swooping if you're in the beginner class. So that's one area. And then like 4-way specifically, or any 4-way, VFS, which is vertical formation skydiving, we have the same dive pool. So we get a dive pool, we get 10 jumps. And in the open class, which is the class we compete in, it's the pro class, you get 10 jumps that you don't know what they're going to be until the night of the meet. And then whoever scores the most points. So as many times as
you say jumps, what do you mean by like just you don't know the aircraft or?
We always know the aircraft because that changes the exit a lot. If we're going to go to the Netherlands, for example, we have a caravan that we're jumping out of. So teams make sure that they do their training jumps to smaller planes, a smaller door, versus like a Twin Otter, which is a bigger door, and it's different airspeed. So
what do you not know until the night before? By jumps, what do you mean by that?
The specific order that the predetermined dive pool could spit out. So
like dive pool being like a formation that you have to create.
that's
How do you remember the sequence in the air?
You practice it. You walk it upright, and then we have these nice little skateboard things. We call them tummy skateboards. I call them tummy skateboards. They're really called creepers.
And you go on your belly.
Yeah. So the visual's a little more understandable. We can see angles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I didn't know.
I think truly how difficult skydiving and what you do in like formation skydiving is so underestimated, because just the mental piece of remembering all that stuff, the body awareness piece, you truly cannot understand until you're doing it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
unreal.
That's the other thing, going back to the question of telling people what you do, trying to explain it to them, like you're never going to understand until you do it. And then once you do it, right, that's just like barrier to entry. When you start talking about formations and grips and how to move your body separate from what you're looking at across from you, it's just a Pandora's box of potential movements and inputs that if you tell them all at once, overwhelmed, blank face, can't remember it. When you, it's like anything else, anything that you repeat over and over again, it's like second nature. It's like walking through a door.
And then how do they judge you while you're in the air? Are the judges also in the air with you?
No, that would
Could
be
you imagine?
that would be super cool.
Down below looking up?
So we have a videographer.
Gotcha.
We have a videographer who submits their video when we land, and then the judges, they sit at their computers and they judge us based on so much different criteria, but primarily what they're looking for is that you did the sequence in the right order and grip, stationary grip. So a lot of times when we're going super fast, if they see like a hand on the camera move, they call that an incomplete formation. Or on exit, the videographer has a really hard job, especially in the more advanced categories, because we're moving pieces on what's called the hill. So when you leave an airplane, as the plane is moving forward, it creates wind down a slope like a slide. And the inputs that you give are not the same as when you're what we call on the flat, when you're just falling straight down. So the videographer has a really difficult job to keep all the grips of the formation in frame or they'll bust us.
So is the videographer one of the members of the team?
Yes.
And do you train with your videographer at like basically all the time, or is it assigned to you at the competition?
We've had a team videographer, and then the team videographer has work obligations or works in skydiving. So last year we had Taylor Buffington as our videographer, our primary teammate. So he's on the roster and he's jumped with us and he does most of our jumps. But sometimes there'd be like a schedule conflict.
Right.
And so then we'll have a fill-in videographer, but we compete with our teammate videographer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's very cool.
Mhm.
My impression is that skydiving is predominantly like a male dominated sport. I don't know if you have anything that you want to speak to in relation to that, or if I'm totally off base.
Oh no, for sure. So when I came here, especially it's male dominant, military town. I grew up at the ranch, and that drop zone definitely had a lot more women. My AFF instructor was a female. She was my sky mom, and I was kind of sheltered in a way because my scope of what percentage of the sport was all female was like, I mean, there's girls here. I don't know what the big deal is. And she's like, you're part of the 12%. That's what it was at the time. So I got my license in 2015. At the time, it was 12%. I think it's like 14% now.
Kyra is absolutely not off base. Women skydivers make up 13% of the overall population in the sport. Skydiving has long been a male-dominated sport. From the early days of military freefall to the competitive arenas of formation, swooping, wingsuiting, men have historically made up the majorities of jumpers, instructors, and world record holders.
All around the world, women are taking the leap, becoming AFF instructors, tandem masters, riggers, tunnel coaches, and world-class competitors. They're organizing women's records, leading the female boogies, and showing up in spaces that once felt off limits.
The sky may still be male-dominated, but it's changing. Every woman who steps onto the DZ or leads a jump is shifting the culture. Because representation matters, visibility matters, and when more women fly, more women feel like they belong. And people like Brenn are helping to change this culture. And like Brenn, there are so many inspirational women to look up to as sky moms.
While we're at it, let's name a couple more. Kathy Paulus is known as the original pioneer. She is credited as the first female professional parachutist. She began jumping in the 1890s, performing exhibitions across Europe. She also invented the collapsible parachute, a major innovation still foundational in today's gear.
Tiny Broadwick became the first woman in 1913 to jump from an airplane, earning global attention. She is also recognized as the first person to ever perform a static line jump, which is still used in military training today. Her courage helped convince military leaders of the value of parachutes in aviation.
And lastly, Cheryl Stearns, the queen of competitive skydiving. Cheryl is one of the most decorated female skydivers in history. As a former U.S. Army Golden Knight, she logged over 20,000 jumps and has won 30-plus national titles and multiple world championships in style and accuracy. Cheryl was also one of the first women to land a jump at both the North and South Poles.
And of course, there are so many more trailblazers in the sport, pushing limits and inspiring the next generation of skydivers.
Yeah, we are going up. And the treatment of females in the sport is definitely unique because there aren't a lot of us. So it's oftentimes a swarm. And I'll often warn the newer lady jumpers, if they're not married or have a significant other, of what's about to happen, especially once they get their license. Because there's a lot of, it's predominantly men.
A lot of guys who are interested.
They're like, another girl who jumps? I don't have to tell my girlfriend for the 10th time that I'm going to go to the drop zone this weekend and not go to the bar or not go out with friends, because I've seen a lot of relationships fail because the significant other doesn't skydive. And I've also seen, I've seen the other way where they try and get them to skydive and they really don't want to do it. And then sometimes they end up liking it more than their significant other. Do you remember Molly? She did not want to skydive, but her husband really wanted to skydive. She did not want to skydive. She told me to this day, she's like, Brenn, I didn't want to do this. I only did it because Adam wanted to do it. And he was all gun-ho about it. She became more hooked than he did. She wanted to go to all the camps. She was talking about buying gear, figuring out where the closest drop zone was, where they're going to move. And that was a unique experience because that doesn't normally happen, but it does happen.
So what's your advice to new girls that are coming into the sport?
Make sure you're getting into the sport for the right reasons would be my words of wisdom. And also be prepared for a lot of extra attention. And some girls like the extra attention, and that's why they want to skydive in a predominantly male sport, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, we're all here to have fun, learn something, and then how seriously you want to take it, how seriously you want to take your progression, you're going to figure out pretty quickly what you like in the track and field version of what skydiving offers.
Mm-hmm. What are the ways that you deal with that attention?
I think now I've developed a tough skin, and my AFF instructor was a hard ass. She was not a soft lady. She loved everyone. No, that's a lie. She did not love everyone. She was a very loving, caring, supportive person, but she did not let me get away with shit. And I thank her to this day. She held me to a higher standard, and that carried over into my own coaching and my own skydiving, which I know I've been critiqued for by other people who think it's like harsh. But I think a lot of times, which I've noticed, especially with the military men, is they don't take you seriously as a female instructor. Like, what does this small girl have to tell me? I already know what to do.
I went to MFF.
Yes, those, God rest their souls. Some of the scariest AMF jokes. I love a confident person, and if you can tell me what to do with confidence and you're doing it correctly, I'm all on board, buddy. Show me that confidence. But when we get out there and we get all frazzled and then you don't listen to anything that I tried to get you to talk about, your life is partially in my hands. Like, it's up to you to pull your own parachute, but I'm going to feel terrible if you get hurt. And so that was the biggest thing. Like, this is a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
And just realizing that it's dangerous and taking the safety seriously is something that kind of pains me a little bit. I feel like I have to lay the hammer down, and then I feel like the bad guy. But that's what was done to me. Like, hey, you got to do it this way or you're going to die. You could die. And it seems silly, but it's true.
Well, I want to talk about the instructor role, because obviously that is a big part of what you do. I think we should start by telling Kyra our first jump.
Okay, so how did this episode really originate? Brenn and I met back in 2022 when I started my AFF at Paraclete.
I started my skydiving journey actually in Hawaii. And it was cool because my first two instructors were also female.
Nice.
And that was just really cool because coming into the sport where you know you're going to be around that, having two women jump with you for my first solo jump, I was like, heck yeah. Then with everything going on in my life, I wasn't able to start again until I think 2022.
Mhm.
And that's when I started again. I think it was jump number 4. I think I was 2 jumps into it. So I had done 1 jump at Paraclete. And then Brenn was my instructor for my second jump back here in North Carolina. And we go up, she's teaching me, you definitely do have a very serious when it's an instructor, but that's good. That's what I need in a sport like this, where it's like, you do need to take this seriously. You can make a safe skydive and you can be safe doing this. You just need to take it seriously and you need to listen to what your instructor says. That's what I needed. So anyone that's telling you anything else. And we exit, and we are
Helicopter.
spinning.
Helicopter.
You're holding on to Kathleen.
Yep.
Yes.
So I got her leg and I got her arm.
Okay.
And we leave the airplane together.
Yep. And she's like, arch. I'm like, and in my brain, I'm like, yeah, I'm arching. I'm arching so much. I am crushing this. And in my brain, I was like, she's like giving me hand signals to like arch more. Maybe it was my legs at that point.
Yeah.
What's the hand signal for arch? Thumbs down?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was actually a fairly new AFF instructor. I got mine and my AFF rating in 2021. I got my coach rating in like 2016, I want to say, and was competing at the time. So I didn't have a lot of time to instruct because that's where all the time ended up going, that between school. And so with Kathleen, we're on this skydive and I'm already like, okay, I've got the smaller girl, and I love the smaller girls as a smaller girl
What's
because she's light, so
people have a hard time staying
up
with me.
on level
Yeah.
because they just sink out because they're heavier. And so like I like taking the smaller females and like less work for my back. Awesome. And even like guys or girls tend to be more flexible in general, so they still have a pretty good arch even if they're teeny tiny. With Kathleen, I'm like thinking about, all right, what are the winds? So whenever we let students jump, there's a wind limit, and there's also winds at altitude that they're going to be under canopy in that we want to consider in case we have to pull them high because they're unstable and are unable to get themselves righted. And that's what ended up happening. At around 10,000 feet, I pull out Kathleen, and I don't remember if I pulled we have radios. So I have a radio she can't talk to me because she's using her toggles and whatnot, but I've got a little bit more experience, so I can manage to not unstow my brakes, and I could talk to her at altitude. I can't remember if I had been like, turn towards the drop zone, because I've done that to students who are flying the wrong way. So I land, and she's very light, so that means she's going to be under canopy even longer than the average male skydiver that runs through. And you were on a lower level because we were connected, so she's on an even.
I'm on a 190, 210.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty small for a lower jump level compared to some drop zones, but still, that's very big in proportion to your body weight.
Okay, what are we talking about? The modern parachute used in skydiving is called the Ram Air Canopy. Unlike round military-style parachutes, Ram Air Canopies are rectangular, pressurized wings, built for performance, control, and glide. These parachutes come in various sizes, usually measured in square feet. A common student canopy might be around 260 square feet, while experienced jumpers often downsize to canopies under 150 square feet, or even smaller.
Now this brings us to wing loading, a key factor in how your parachute flies. Wing loading is the ratio of your total exit weight to include your body, gear, and clothing, divided by the canopy size. For example, if you weigh 150 pounds and your gear adds 25 pounds, that's 175 pounds total. Under 175 square foot canopy, your wing loading will be 1.0. The higher wing loading, the faster the canopy will descend. The more responsive it becomes, and the smaller the landing area you'll need. Heavier wing loading increases forward speed, turning ability, and descent rate. But it also requires faster, more accurate decision making on approach and landing. That's why students start with larger canopies and lower wing loading, giving them more forgiveness and more time in the air.
And I get down and I'm like, oh, baby Jesus, let this girl see the drop zone because she's so far away from the ground. And we're a unit. And I'm like, if this is after, 10 to 15 seconds of trying to write it, and I'm looking at the altitude and it's just unmanageable at that point. It's unsafe because she could get sick. Or if she pulls out of my hand any which way. So sometimes when students try and correct their body position, it's not always the right input. And that's happened to me before as well. So at a certain point, you make a decision as an instructor. So I pulled her out super high, 10,000. Normally they pull at 55. So, yep. So I ended up pulling high as well to try and get like an idea of where she's at and make sure in my mind, okay, this is where she's flying. And we talk about a landing pattern before we even make the jump. And I'm thinking to myself, please be able to remember the landing pattern where your holding area is. And I get down and I don't see her at first because she's this tiny little orange speck still way up there. And I'm like frantically looking around. New instructor at XP, like within my first, or it was my second year there. And she did great. She stayed where she needed to stay and she landed safely. And I just remember my heart rate. If there's a time when you're scared as an instructor, it's when you don't have control of what your student can do.
Yeah, which is a lot of.
It's part of the student process, and now especially having gotten like 1,000 plus AFF jumps at this point, and you can't write anyone off, especially at the lower levels, because they're so scared. There's so many different stimuli and stimulus variables that are going through their head.
All that to say, Brenn did not write me off. In fact, she's probably the main reason I'm still in this sport today. Brenn encouraged me and held camps and tunnel events to help newer skydivers like me gain experience and confidence in the sky.
We asked Brenn about skydive culture.
Cool, yeah, I'll dive right in. So what keeps people in skydiving is the community. It's like anything that people invest a lot of time, hobbies. It's not necessarily that they're head over heels for this sport for everyone. Most people learn to love it or fall in love with it because of the people they're with. So if you have good friends and good vibes and reasons to keep showing up to the drop zone, it's kind of like when you first start going to the gym. If you just go by yourself, you need to go to the gym and you feel good once you're there, but it's a lot harder to get motivated. So if you have friends who are going to hold you accountable and also you're going to get to jump with them and you're just there to have a good time and lift each other up, that's what creates a good community. And every drop zone has their own little micro community, kind of like college. Like every college campus has its own community. And some colleges are more focused as a training facility, meaning XP in general is known as like a competitor's spot. It's not somewhere where there's bonfires at the end of the night where everyone drinks a beer and you camp out on the drop zone for the weekend. This drop zone in particular is not like that. The ranch where I grew up, very much campfire, bonfire, tell stories, get drunk, party on the weekends. If we're training Sunday morning, we're still all going to go out to dinner or make dinner, barbecue at the drop zone. So it's very much a family culture. And other drop zones have that to some degree. A lot of it has to do with the owners and what they want to facilitate. Some drop zones are privately owned. XP is privately owned. The ranch is privately owned. Other drop zones like DeLand, Skydive DeLand, it's a public drop zone. There are campers on site, but there are more restrictions to the nightlife after jumping. So if there's a strong nightlife after jumping, that usually breeds a stronger community sense in general.
What was it like transitioning from like the ranch where it was like your family and people that you grew up with to then competing, being at more serious drop zones? How do you kind of balance that life?
For me, I loved it because my goal was to be the best in the world. And at the ranch, it wasn't the best facility to become the best in the world. It's a great time. You make friends that you'll have forever. And then I would call if I was on the other side of the country and a problem, they would fly out and pick me up and get me out of whatever situation. And that's the kind of friendship that you can't replace. Whereas here, the goal is to be the best in the world, to train, to be efficient in that training. So it's also a great environment if that is your goal. And that's why I really enjoyed coming to XP after coming from more of like a fun weekend vibe skydiving place where everyone's not too serious, not everyone necessarily has a track to wanting to compete or get progressively better in a specific area. So coming here and having that environment and the tools, the tunnels super close. Not a lot of drop zones have a tunnel so close by. And that's also why we do one person AFF, because you guys get that 15 minutes of tunnel. Whereas I had one instructor, but I had a different progression leading up to it. We had a tandem progression back in the day where you do 3 tandems. So you're hooked up to that other instructor.
Gotcha.
So it's also dependent on the aircraft available. There's so many different variables, but XP was actually really nice to also be just another skydiver. No one knew my name, no one knew my parents, and I've worked very hard to keep it that way for a long time because people treat you differently when they find out that you're a DZO kid. They try and be your friend when they wouldn't have otherwise, and they treat you differently. I've watched it many times when someone realized who I was. Yeah, it's very off-putting because then you don't know if they're a real friend or not, and it just takes time.
Because they just want like the benefits of knowing your family or knowing like the resources that you might have access to. Do you feel like having to hide kind of side of you, has that been difficult or no?
Love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. I don't say a single thing when people start asking me. The only time it gets a little suspicious is they're like, oh, when'd you get your license? 2012. And they look at me and they're like, how old are you? I was like, let's just say I started really young. You don't need to know how old I am. Tandem students especially, they'll ask me that. And that's no problem. I'm probably never going to see the tandem again, shooting video for them when they're asking, oh, how long have you been skydiving? With students, similar sort of thing. Oh, don't worry about it. You know, it's impolite to ask a woman's age, so I can get away with it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with you having your own accomplishments and you made like your own name. You don't have to be tied to all of this stuff. You are your own person.
What started that fire in you that you're like, I do want to be on the world stage? And what do you think has set you apart to make you do the work that got you there?
Started with that friend group, that one friend, shout out to Chris Coleman, who asked me to do 4-way, and then Joey Marshall, who we added to the bunch. When we all realized, when you just skydive and you just train at your own drop zone, you don't really know how good you are in relation to everyone else, and that's why you go to nationals, kind of see where your standings are. And when we were all pretty young, like 20s, I was in late teens, we had a lot of potential to be good, and we were all fairly naturally talented as well. So getting along, loving to skydive, and then being very coachable individuals made us realize like we could win next year. Instead of being 16th in intermediate, we could win intermediate, and we got second, which was pretty cool the following year. And then the year after that, we won the category above us, which has harder dive jumps in them and whatnot. So I guess once you're in it and you realize that there's always something to chase, always something to get better at as a person in sports, that's always who I've been, wanting to get better, and having that progression and something to strive for is what really drew me to 4-way, that structure. And then, you know, you have so much fun doing it. You get to jump out of planes, for crying out loud. Not everyone can say that.
And I mean, it has taken you to the world stage. I mean, you've competed and you've represented the United States at some of these events. What has that meant to you to be able to do some of those events?
It's an honor, and it's very hard to describe. We often talk about round 1 of any World Cup, world meet. It takes 10 years off your life. Really? I have only recently, and this is after 4 years of competing at the pro level, been slightly less nervous round 1. And people who've been doing this for 20 years, they'll tell you there's nothing like round 1 jitters.
Really?
Jump 2, nothing in comparison. Nothing in comparison. The start of every day, so competitions will be over a couple days sometimes, and the first jump of every day, very similar feeling of anxiety and stress. But then once you start flying, you remember, the more you do it, the more you have muscle memory, like any other sport. So once you find that flow, you don't think about it as much, and then the nerves kind of fall away at that point. I've blacked out before. Like, I've gotten down. I remember my first competition jump back with the girls. We landed, and I turned to Michelle, and I was like, how did the jump go? Because I remember nothing. Like a student on their first jump, and we were like, so what do you remember about the skydive? And they're like, I don't remember anything. It's similar feeling in that sense, because your adrenaline's pumping, and there's so much on the line, not just for yourself, but for your other teammates. That's the biggest thing for me. Is like, I don't want to let my teammates down. I don't want to let my teammates down. So living in that stressful environment and then being able to operate at a high level, there's something very satisfying about just knowing that you're flying your best and you're doing it with people who also have that same shared common goal.
Do you have a pre-jump like routine or something to like calm your nerves?
I'm an avid fitness person, so I always make sure, no matter how early the start time is, I get some sort of movement in to get those jitters out. And if I don't, I do it after that first day, so that I'm so tired when I wake up that I'm a little calmer. And then I don't take much caffeine. Like, I'll have like a cup of coffee, but definitely no energy drinks before round one, because my heart rate's already through the roof. And then just going over the dive, we do it as a team a bunch of times. We look at all the different angles and over again, and then just visualizing all the jumps is very common. You can do it in the plane, you can do it before going to bed. That's the general routine.
Is there something about being part of the team that you think draws you to competitive skydiving? Like, do you think you would get the same kind of rush if it was maybe just like a solo event for you?
I've thought about swooping before, like competing in swooping, because I kind of like only having to rely on myself.
Yeah.
And some people need others to drive them, and over the years I've developed this, my own internal drive, that it's very comforting. Like, hey, this is all on me. If I mess up, I'm not letting anyone else down but myself. I'm the one in charge here. But when you have another group of people, it adds another element of difficulty just in the flying and the expectations. So it's kind of a toss-up. We wouldn't be able to do formations with just one person. It'd have to be a different discipline. And the idea of doing speed skydiving, which I won't get into too much because I think it's a ridiculous sport, so discipline, or wingsuiting competitions. So sorry for all my wingsuiting friends.
For anyone listening, she's not in the squirrel suit. Get that image out of your mind right now. If you're picturing that, stop.
Yeah, so I don't have much interest in doing that solo sports in skydiving, but there is something really nice about only having yourself to worry about.
Yeah, totally.
Scheduling's a lot easier.
That is, yeah, that's fair.
Oh, man.
Can we talk a little bit about fear? When I think of the idea of jumping out of a plane, it's to me kind of scary. Like, you started doing it at 11 years old. And how do you now, as an instructor, kind of help people cope with that fear and overcome it? And even just like competition jitters, overcoming that fear.
Yeah.
I think, they always say bravery is not doing something that you're not afraid of. It's like overcoming that fear. So
with students, what I've found is you give them the most details possible on the ground in a concise manner by also asking them questions. So to see like where they're quickly remembering and how they're remembering. So like, hey, show me how to do this. Don't just tell me what the dive flow is. Show me what the dive flow is. And then when we're in the plane, I'm a firm believer in just tell me the skydive. Like, if you told me on the ground what the landing pattern is and what the canopy drills are, let's just focus on one piece. Because once you're under canopy, you're going to remember, oh yeah, I got to go to my holding area. Oh, I got to check steerability and all these terms to make sure you have a good parachute. But if you're going to add that element to their free fall experience, often I'll just give them bullet points like, hey, I need you to check your altitude. I need you to pull on time. That's all you're doing on that skydive. And there's so many other details that we could talk about. But if you just give them 2 or 3 things to focus on, 9 times out of 10 it goes better. It's like, oh, that's all I have to do. I'm like, yeah, check your altitude, pull your parachute.
Because I feel like brain science probably says something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Like that we can only remember.
Oh, yeah,
so
especially when
many
you're
things.
terrified.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, do you have fear? Like, do you?
Do I have fear?
Yeah,
Oh,
do you
man.
have fear?
Oh, yes, I have fear. Not necessarily in skydiving. I mean, I have I have fear in skydiving for sure. but it's different. So I'm scared to a degree every jump, but it's like a good excitement, adrenaline fear with, like a problem AFF student who maybe I've jumped with or I've seen video of and now I'm with. I'll be a little more scared. But when you get so many jumps and you get so much experience, it's more of like a awareness, an increased awareness where you're prepared for it to happen and you're already setting yourself up to not be in a bad position. So a lot of that, just being able to anticipate what could happen, takes away a lot of that. Under parachute, like when I land and I watch my students land, I am always scared because they will tell me the perfect landing pattern on the ground and they've had good landings before, and then something happens. They get distracted. They see someone else land and they're near them, or they feel the wind pulling them and they weren't expecting that, and they panic and they do crazy things. So I'm afraid there for them. Stepping out of my comfort zone and I'm doing a 250 way this year, which is the world record attempt. Shout out to Doug Barron, who is organizing it, my good friend and teammate Doug Barron, at Chicago, where they're also doing the 200 way vertical record at the same time.
So what's a 200 way?
That's 200 people, 250 people, all in the
jumping.
skydive, all connected.
Oh, yeah.
We built a formation. Yes, so that is terrifying to me. Being under canopy with that many people and having bodies trying to get into slot, absolutely terrified. I know I shouldn't be terrified. I should be scared. It's a level down from terrified, but that scares me.
In skydiving, a world record attempt is a highly organized effort to achieve a performance recognized at the international level, usually by the FAI, the global governing body for air sports. One of the most recognized types of record is the largest formation skydive, measured by how many skydivers successfully link together in freefall to build a single formation. For a record to count, jumpers must exit from multiple aircraft at high altitude, fly to a predetermined slot, dock with precision and hold the formation for a set amount of time, usually at least 3 seconds, and capture the entire formation clearly on video for judging and validation.
But you're gonna do it?
I'm gonna do it.
She's gonna be another.
When is it? When's it gonna be?
It's in August. Yes, end of August.
How much preparation goes into that?
A lot of preparation.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of back end preparation that people who show up just to do the jump don't realize. Slotting everyone, 250 bodies for a formation based on size and skill level takes a lot of forethought. The planes, where the planes need to be, and the conversations you have to have pilots. You got to have good pilots and different sized aircraft. There's a lot of planning that goes involved.
Plus, I'm sure, is a level that they're only allowing people. Like they're not.
Oh no, yeah. You have to apply.
Like
250 ways.
It's not just anyone can be like, hey,
Yes.
I skydived one time and
I
did the stand up once. Let me get in on this 250 people.
So no, Kyra and I will not be asked to join this 250 way.
Yeah, they would laugh. They think you would definitely laugh. No way, this person's joking. Like this weekend at XP, there's the 100 way record, and a lot of people who are waiting for their application to be accepted or are in like a pending status right now are doing the 250 way so that if they do well on it, they get a recommendation from whoever their plane captain is or whoever the coach is, because 100 bodies is still a lot of people. Yeah. And they have different groups and different planes that they jump out of, because you can't have 100 people in one plane. So depending on how they do, they may or may not now be offered a slot at this 250 way. So you gotta have experience, not just in jump numbers, but formations, large formations.
Yeah. I want to know what Brenn Richards does on her time off.
What time off, Kathleen?
Skydiving.
I've been telling myself every year, and we have to actually go surfing. So like when I was growing up, I'd go to the Jersey Shore all the time and surf. And then in the wintertime, we'd go to Costa Rica in the winters because there's no jumping. And that's where I originally learned how to surf. So surfing, snowboarding, haven't done either one of those things in many years, pretty much since I've moved to North Carolina. So I'd really like to do that more. But downtime looks like, I don't even know what downtime looks like. Sleeping.
She's always crushing. There's a Whoop Fitness app for skydivers, and she's perpetually crushing everybody in it. Everyone's like, someone's got to beat Brenn's strain record this week.
With Whoop groups, you can connect with friends, teammates, or your entire gym crew. Everybody's data feeds into a live leaderboard showing daily strain, recovery, and sleep scores. Whoop measures strain, a personalized metric of how much cardiovascular stress your body takes on throughout the day. The higher the number, the more intense your day's been. And Brenn, she's topping the charts day after day.
I have gotten a lot of threats, and I invite you all to
Threats?
what
kind of threats?
Jeff's like, I went home, I saw that we were neck and neck, and I did crunches and sit-ups and did all this stuff. Like, I thought about going on another long bike ride just so I could beat you. And I was like, I love it. I
You're
want
like,
you to.
too bad I was already working out again.
Yeah, no, he's like, did you go home and work out? And I was like, I might have.
You're like, crunches aren't going to do it. I'm over here doing a hit.
Yeah. Well, it's skydiving all day. Like yesterday, organizing, moving, walking back from the loading area. The heart rate increases from just looking out for other people. That puts a lot of strain.
That's true.
Packing.
word.
Kathleen knows it's strenuous.
I don't pack.
No, you don't pack?
Not yet.
We gotta fix that.
I
That's
know.
my biggest
Next
gripe.
lesson.
You gotta
Next
fix it.
lesson.
Next
Next
lesson.
lesson, you learn how to pack.
Yeah.
Since this episode has been recorded, I have started packing my own parachute. And let me tell you, that is strenuous.
Brenn is truly a go-getter in all aspects of her life. When she isn't skydiving or sleeping, she's a certified CrossFit and nutrition coach. And truthfully, we're all just trying to be as fit and badass as she is. So we asked her to talk a little about her nutrition coaching and life outside of skydiving.
So during COVID, I worked for a nutrition company at my CrossFit gym that I also worked at. And it was a newer nutrition company. So a lot of CrossFit boxes or gyms, they have a nutrition element because it's so important to fitness and longevity. Yeah. And so they had recently started this separate business within the gym. So I used to do online remote nutrition coaching for them. And then I took a little bit of a break from it during COVID when I got the nice unemployment lifestyle. And that's how I actually got back into coaching skydiving and being a coach at the drop zone, because we were jumping and I had been furloughed and they never asked me back, and I didn't expect them to ask me back. It was a smaller company and they really weren't in a position to hire me back. So I started doing it on my own, and I had a lot of clients over the winter time. One of my first seasons here, which was helpful because we don't make as much money in the winter time unless we're running tunnel stuff. And it's not something that I like to do with just anyone. I'm kind of particular about the client because I've learned that it becomes more about herding sheep, and I can't want you to lose weight and I can't want you to eat better. So you can tell me you want to lose weight until you're blue in the face, but unless you apply one of the 5 things that I recommended doing this week and you don't, it becomes frustrating. So I have a nutrition client right now who I work with. I've had 3 over the last couple months, and they are skydivers, which is kind of nice. So they understand my lifestyle. And I tell everyone, like, I don't work with just anyone. I have a very busy schedule. And if you're going to take this seriously, I will take this seriously with you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You're like, you got to apply.
Yeah, no, you do. You have to apply. Like, I can recommend other companies if you don't want to work with me, but it's all word of mouth at this point. That's how I've gotten most of my clients in the skydiving space.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And lastly, we ended on everybody's favorite question.
What's a fun fact about you that you think most people wouldn't know?
I'm actually very much into painting and artwork.
Really?
And I've been trying to do that more because it's brought me a lot of joy over the years. But art class was my favorite all throughout high school. I did like an independent study my last year, and just painting and drawing, like watercolor pencils are my new thing right now. But oil painting and canvases and photography was a big part of my separate from athletic life. So I guess that would be a fun fact. Most people don't know that.
I did
That's
not
very
know
cool.
that. That's super cool.
We went to a Salvador Dali museum when we were in Imperia Brava in Spain for the Wind Games this past February. Was it January, February? I can't remember. But it was this year. And that was super cool. Like just seeing all of his paintings and real life.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So what do you like to paint or draw? Painting, drawing?
Painting, drawing. I would say more abstract for painting and whatnot. And then, you know, different things in nature, or like similar to Dali with surrealism by incorporating more materialistic forms within nature. It's like
That's
stuff
super cool.
with cool texture is my thing. And not having a plan and just being able to express myself without criticism or judgment and just having a good time, it makes me happy.
Damn, how cool is she? And that wraps up today's episode of Shalaborate. Brenn, we're always cheering for you and so pumped to have you part of the Girl Gang. Follow her on social media or visit the Drop Zone for some of her events. You won't regret it. Thanks for listening to Shalaborate. We can't wait to bring you more episodes.
Don't forget to follow, like, and drop us a review. Our episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Patreon.
If you liked the show, post it on your social media and pass it along. Women supporting women is the whole point.
We'll be back next week with more opinions, more stories, and more collaboration.
Until then, I'm Kat.
And I'm Tyra. This podcast is for the girls.
I am skydiving.
Why would you want to go skydiving?
Why would I want to go skydiving? Because my sister did it. I'll be the 5th one to skydive.
Whoa, that's
I
awesome.
think I have to. Like, it's a part. It's like a
Family
rite of
tradition.
passage.
Yeah, awesome.
So
that's the primary reason?
That is the primary reason. Is there another reason I should be given?
I don't know. Some people have all sorts of reasons.
What other reason? Bucket list. Cross that off my bucket list.
Okay.
One of many.
Yep.
That's about. I think that's it.
That's great.
Yeah.
You don't need to have
I don't
a
think
reason.
I need to. Yeah. I think just jumping out an airplane is enough to. Yeah.
How are you feeling? Are you
I'm
nervous?
feeling good. I'm actually feeling really good. I think once I get up there, I'll be like really confused and probably a little nervous. But I think once I do it, I think it'll be okay.
You'll be on the road for a little bit.
Yeah. If she can do it,
anyone can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Kendall can do it. Anyone can do it. Huh?
So I guess if Kendall can do it, I can do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we're gonna have a lot of fun up there.
Can't wait.
Let's make our way to the plane.
Let's make our way.
Woo. Watch those guys in the back.
Almost survived.
Wow, we almost did. That was insane.
What'd you think of it?
Stand up? I don't know how I'm gonna stand up.
Sea legs.
I don't know how to be on the ground now.
You're meant to
I'm a new woman. I'm in the air.
Woo! Transformation Friday.
Yeah, it's Transformation Friday.
What was your favorite part?
The one. What was my favorite part?
Yeah.
I think it's not even me doing it. It was Kathleen like jumping out of the. She looks like she just got like sucked out of the air. Just, like,
God.
so seeing that was amazing. Just like seeing the sky, like being up that high was really cool.
It is. It's a different experience. Well,
Yeah.
you look great. Your hair
Thank
looks
you.
awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you for
nice
the.
wind breeze look
Yeah,
good.
we love it. It's probably the worst ever.
Get a rock, paper, scissors win?
I don't know.
I don't know. We got lost.
I was like
Go to the video. We have to go to the video.
I couldn't remember for a second. I was like, you can see like the tears in my, or like my.
I know we had a triple scissors down at one point.
I didn't realize how hard it was to move your hands. I was like trying to do all these things, and then the air was.
But you did it. You did
Just
great.
did it. Is that Kathleen over there?
Right here.